Sitaram, once more welcome to SWA DHARMA, carried exclusively on Sankhya TV SWA DHARMA, where we share information and most times put up quotations, and with those quotations we give the meanings of the relevant words and terms used, all in an effort so that the viewer may crystallize in his or her mind an interpretation or a take on some of the concepts of Sanatan Dharma. In so doing, there is not a case of semantics. We put the meanings as they are and allow the viewer to imbibe. So we had promised that in the wedding ceremony to discuss in further detail the very vows that are taken. So just bringing everyone up to speed, wedding having been concluded, the Bharat is making preparation now to return, the groom to return with his newly wedded bride. Of course, there will be pictures taken. It's a photo moment. We all understand that. And sometimes there's a question about the role of the grantee, the knot that ties both together. It impedes the free flow of the take of pictures and so forth. The grantee, when the couple leaves the Vedika, having performed the Nirajan at the end of the wedding ceremony, that could be removed and they are free to interchange and meet with whoever. The Kangan, especially in these days and times where people are allotted in a work environment certain specific time periods for vacation, for marriage, most times the Pandits will have to fit into the timetable the removal of the Kangan. So it may well be done when the groom and bride return to the groom's home. It may well be done at that point in time, which allows intimate contact if they are heading off to honeymoon and so forth, because at the end of the day we have to be mindful that the couple might be operating within time constraints. And then there is also the Dvidagaman, where the bride, after having returned from honeymoon, will spend, there's no fixed time, will spend some time with her parents at their home. Could be a short time. The concern there is that, remember, this has been a traumatic experience for the parents of the bride. They have given up their daughter in the care of someone else. And so to re-establish that connect with her parents, to ensure them that everything is sound and in order, she spends that time and then returns with her husband as she takes up her permanent position as wife. On that occasion, it is known as Dvidagaman. It's yet another occasion when in entering her husband's home from her parents' home, she stands on the left. So we look at the vows, as we have said, 7 in number for the groom, and the Pandit recites, as we have mentioned, that is the preferred practice of the parents to call in the couple, the Pandit to call in the couple before the marriage ceremony and explain the vows clearly. So we look at vow number 1 for the groom. So the wife asks, the Pandit recites, if at any time you have to perform a yagya, attend a religious ceremony, or go on a pilgrimage, I, the wife, desire that you ask and obtain my consent. If possible, I should be allowed to accompany you. So we examine in a little more detail the performance of yagya. Yagya is the highest human act. So definitely we will not want to truncate the wife's presence in such an undertaking. So we make provision that the wife is a participant in the yagya, that we may host or we may be participating, the husband may be participating at any given point in time. It is noteworthy that we have put Dev and Rishi Yagya. Of the 5 yagyas that everyone should perform during the course of their lifetime, Dev and Rishi Yagya comes quick in significance on the heels of the Devi Yagya. She asks also that when he has to attend religious ceremonies like pujas and so forth, it is always prudent for a husband to take his wife along with him in such ceremonies for 2 quick reasons. One, the host and hostess of that ceremony will feel that there is support, there is presence, and there's presence is support. So it augurs well for the host and hostess. Plus, There might be little snippets here and there where the wife, with her skills and knowledge base, might be able to stick a hand in and help out matters. And help is never too much in undertakings of this stature and nature. Pilgrimages. Now, pilgrimages, whereas they are very beneficial, visit to pilgrimages, one must also know it, or be cognizant of its limitations. The main use really of a pilgrimage, it is an important avenue to counter the wages of sinful acts. So if, for instance, people leave these shores and probably head off to visit the pilgrimages of India, that might pretty well boil down to a sightseeing, catching up with history and so forth, tourism and all that. How much of it really engages the individual that I am going there to take care of some of my sinful acts, which from these and past lives might have been committed, that needs careful thought. So if a husband is going to embark on a pilgrimage, the wife has to weigh in on these. Both parties have to sit and amicably weigh in on the relevance of the visits to pilgrimages. We factor that because in these days of economic times, it might be difficult for both parties to afford to go to pilgrimages. So we look at the second vow. The wife asks, if at any time you desire to perform Pitri Yagya, which is worship of the ancestors, I desire to be asked to join in such noble acts. It endorses. The second vow that the male undertakes endorses that females can perform these rites also. Somewhere along the line, matters have been got lost in translation, that the females have no part to undertake in ceremonies like Shraddh. They do have a part. They might be at a certain position in the pecking order, but they can play a part. And it is also noteworthy to mention that when spiritual undertakings have to be performed, one has got to be vigilant to maximize the efforts put out for these undertakings. The appropriate three conditionalities for Shraddh performance. It can be done on a new moon. If it is so done, it must finish before noon. It could be done during Pitri Paksh, the time allotted for worship of the ancestors, or if it's a current circumstance, it's done either the 10th, the 12th, the 12th, the 13th, the 16th, or the 24th day after cremation, day of cremation being one, depending on one's varna. These declarations have been made in the Shastras. We just put it in brevity here. So we move to the third vow. Wife asks, if at any time my parents face dishonor, poverty or illness, you as my husband are expected to render assistance to relieve their distress. And dishonor is not the end of the world. There are ways to repair dishonor. So the husband ought to stand firmly with his parents, and once he is clear in his mind that they are prepared to withstand further tests that might have caused the first stain on character, and they are prepared to do that, he stands with them in support. He also is there to encourage, to stay the course, because many times we wish to throw in the towel and call it a day. That's his duty. And he is also there to remind them gently that it's a process. This process may be long. To remove the stain of dishonor, for whatever reasons, it may be a long process. So he throws in his weight and support behind the parents of the bride, if so be the circumstance. We move to the fourth vow. If at any time you desire to serve our community, build a temple, or be involved in other religious and social service, I ask that I be allowed to join in such activities. Most times in such activities, it may involve physical labor. An understanding male tries to prevent the female from getting in that terrain, but she has her contributions to make. For instance, she can make her contribution by providing meals for those who have gathered to do whatever physical labor or whatever project is involved. And the female has a way with decorations and so forth. There too she can make a significant input. So when the wife asks to be part of it, we can't have tunnel vision and say, well, you know, this is a man's job. No, there are certain inputs. She can make significant inputs. And I mean, at the end of the day, it all adds well to an amicable relationship, an amicable bond. We move to the fifth vow. She asks, if at any time you may have to leave home and go abroad on business or pleasure, I must have the assurance that our welfare at home will be secured. I also insist that my prior consent asked for and obtained. Now, when the husband, if the husband has to leave and go abroad, there has got to be justifiable reasons. Some that come readily to mind are that if he's going for the purposes of study, or if it's a temporary work arrangement, or even if the employers are rewarding performance and send him on a retreat with other members of staff, so be it. But the wife has to ensure that, for instance, if it's a temporary work arrangement, is it at the end of the day going to improve his standing in the company or the organization for which he works? Or is he simply being used? And these are some of the inputs and rationale that have to be exercised to ensure that if he has to go, it has to be absolutely important and pivotal to the future of their relationship. She asks that make sure that before you leave, my welfare and security at home, they are taken care of. Welfare. A wife, well, she can stay at home, at her parents' home in the interim, or she may be a trusted, respected elder can stay at the home. And this we have to be very careful about, especially in the times we live in. A trusted, respected elder. There are trusted, respected elders in every family, an extended family. But we have got to finger them, and so it is important for the elders of the family to so decide. But at the end of the day, the security of the wife is at stake. And if we have to compromise who might be staying with her, then it is better she stay at her parents' home, because with criminal activity and so forth, the criminals do their homework, so they will know who is home and who's not home, who's alone and who's not alone. So we have to be mindful of these dangers and inherent risks. These are just suggestions, but along those lines we're looking. Her welfare, he has got to leave funds for emergencies like health concerns. He must do that. And then she asks for his consent. Why? Because sometimes a wife might be more objective on long-term benefits. So a husband, for example, might be told, well, look, you know, go ahead and participate in, if it's a temporary work arrangement, accede to the request. But at the end of the day, he might be, you know, it's an opportunity for me to go into a new space, a new country, and the excitement overshadows the rationale. So he's subjective, what is good for him, but may not necessarily be objective. And that is why the wife asked her consent to lend an objective input into such important decisions. Vow number 6. If at any time you are to be bestow gifts, to lend or borrow, I request my consent be asked for and obtained. Reason being, it's a law of nature. The females most times, more often than not, are more frugal with purchases. We send a man to buy a gift, he walks into the shop, well, I'm supposed to get a bowl, and he looks at the first bowl and says, yeah, I'll have that, regardless of the price. A female might be saying, you know, we might get a better bargain at another store or something of similar quality at a less cost. So she's more frugal with purchases. That's why she asks. It is not that the man is not being micromanaged. And that is the fear of men with these vows. They feel they micromanage. It's not micromanage. You have to be rational and see on a greater plane, a greater plateau, where the input of the rishis who designed, rishis like munis like Vasishtha Muni designed these vows. She may not be blinded through friendship by those to whom the husband gives loans. So she asks for her consent when to lend or to borrow. And sometimes a friend might come to her husband and he's blinded by the friendship and bestows, but the wife recognizes, having interchanged and mingled, that maybe that person is not as committed. They don't have what it takes to honor the repayment of the loan. Understandably, they might not be in a position immediately to repay it, but once the commitment is there, she might well not object. So now we arrive at the seventh and final vow, which the groom will accede to. And she says, "You are to be the God of our home. I ask you now that our love and affection should grow and mature as we advance in age. That you do not allow the remarks and observations of an unworthy and dishonorable person to cause strife between us. I do not want you to speak harshly or angrily to me." Let me repeat that. I do not want you to speak harshly or angrily to me. That's part of the vows. Especially when we are in the company of friends and others. As today, this sacred ceremony, invocation of the mantras by the Pandits, and the blessings of our mutual love have all joined us together for life. Let us remain so until our Creator decides that we should exit this world. Some of the points to note on the seventh vow: show care. And care is an expression of love. And the wife says, "I want our love to grow." And one way of showing care is sometimes the husband ought to help the wife discharge some of her duties and responsibilities, make it a little easier for her. It's an expression of love and care. Simple act. She says that for the love and relationship to grow, we have to be less thin-skinned. At the beginning of knowing someone, we're very super sensitive, hypersensitive about comments made. We always think, well, it's about me. But maturity, age brings wisdom. As we mature as a couple, she says, that let not these frivolous comments from time to time reach any depth in your thinking and your formulation of what I represent and what I am to you. So time ought to make us less thin-skinned. In major concerns, seek the input of your wife before arriving at conclusions, because, people go back and forth. We have to be wary of persons who bring complaints, whether they are honorable people. And it's always good to get the input of the wife. Hear both sides of the story. That's a basic tenet of law. Hear both sides. That's why the justice system prevails. So, if we have filtered a comment coming into the marriage institution and we are a little uneasy with it, before forming a conclusion, get the input of the wife. And how you speak and how you act. Verbal abuse and physical abuse are a no-no in a Hindu marriage, in any institution, but is declared in the vows in a marriage institution. Abusing, obscene language to a wife, unacceptable. And physical abuse can sow the seeds of separation. So sometimes when pundits have to pronounce on dissolving for marriage, this factors heavily. And it's premised on the fact, the book Mantra Mahar now states, it's premised on the fact that you, the husband, have broken the vow by physically abusing your wife. Hence, there's sound grounds for dissolving of that marriage. So now we move to the vows, the 5 vows, 5 conditions. The groom asks his wife, vow number 1. He says, "You ought to conduct yourself in society and at home in such a manner that you never bring disgrace to our honored name." Remember, the wife has to understand, this newly wedded bride has to understand that her conduct has to be in sync with the legacy of the family she has joined. It will be a family, most times it might be a family that doesn't use obscene language. So that can't form part of her vocabulary, not only generally, but particularly in the legacy she's looking to upkeep. She has got to be vigilant about promiscuity, because that is not a tradition of any noble family, much more so the one she may have joined. And she has got to be supportive of religious activities. That, religious undertakings are being performed by the family, and the newly wedded bride, or himself, she is not newly wedded, she is absent, we are not seeing her. That is not in good sync with this first vow, where we debase the honored name of the family which we have joined. Her second vow, husband says, "In my absence, you are expected to accommodate and entertain any acquaintance or visitor to our home according to our dharma, means and their social standings. Your conduct towards them should be at all times be beyond reproach." So if it is in the husband's absence, a male comes along. If he is younger than that wife, she considers him and acts towards him in every way as a younger brother. If, as a child, sorry. If it's somebody approximately her age, she accords the sort of welcome, and the discussion goes along the lines where she accepts him as her brother. And if it's an elderly male, definitely the status and pedigree of a father she adopts. In that way, she remains beyond reproach. And again, the word vigilant pops up, because she has got to be vigilant. There must be no breach, no second thoughts about her approaches or other approaches to her. There must be no crevice, no crack at all in that bond she has with her husband. He says that according to their social standings, sometimes a dignitary might be the guest, the husband is not there, and we have to observe the necessary protocol. Are things in place to welcome such a guest? If not, we might have to turn down the opportunity. For instance, if a dignitary is coming along, we might be inviting him to make a speech. Do we have the wherewithal to have a PA system in place? So these and other protocols, if they can't be put in place, where the driver of such situations, the husband, is not physically around, then the wife probably will have to take stock and decide what decision she has to make, because she would not want to invite such a situation and then meet necessary protocols. So we come to the third vow of the husband or of the wife, asked by the husband. As we say, having rehearsed this, the Pandit will ask on the husband's behalf. Should there ever be a domestic friction between us, you should never bear this in mind, because such differences are common in every home. It is either a curse or a blessing that exists in all homes. Therefore, you must not leave our home because of such minor differences, as such action on your part may cause only public scandal and shame. Such shame and scandal lead to disunity in a home. Bottom line, avoid washing dirty linen in public. If even not for the reasons stated here, a home, a family home, may have children, and children, as we have always bandied and said, children are psychologists. They will know when pa and ma, mommy and daddy have their little differences or major differences. They will sense it. They will pick up by the mannerisms, and it affects them. So if even for that reason we keep things within closed doors as a couple, it's important. And concerns will arise from time to time. There will be differences. There will be different takes in institution. It should not escalate to the point where it threatens the marriage decision. If it is going to so do, the first confidant is the brother-in-law, the Bahanoi, who had performed the tag part in the wedding ceremony. Remember, he performed that part, giving the declaration and the conditions that I am the first call arbitrator when there are little tiffs in a marriage institution. So it goes to him and kept in confidence. And sometimes it may warrant the input of the guru or the purohit of the home. And all these are kept in confidence. No one should be privy to what is going on until the matter is sorted out. So this third vow says that sometimes there will be differences, but there are avenues to air these differences. We move to vow number 4. You should be punctual, careful, responsible, and regular to your domestic duties so that no unnecessary inconveniences are experienced. You are to be the goddess of our home. Let's examine this. Punctuality. If we are talking about a wife being punctual, we have to factor certain real situations. And she may be a working partner. She may have to awake earlier to cater for traffic. She may have to look after the children's needs of the day. So a husband has got to put punctuality in perspective. If he doesn't get his hot breakfast, it's not the end of the world. We have to step aside and watch, be fair to her. So punctuality in context, we can handle it. Then careful, she has got to be careful. A woman is naturally, has finesse and class. So step up to the plate. We can't be making a dish of soup with wrong provisions, and you're struggling to cut the provision in two and they may not be boiled properly. That is not a finesse and class of a female. She knows how to cook. She knows how to maneuver. So step up to the plate. Responsible. Her maternal instincts must be brought to the fore. A female has to understand that. She can sense when something may be wrong with members of the family, with children, and sometimes she knows she does not have the capability, or even if she has the capability, sometimes it might not be prudent for her to intervene in the situation. So she ought to gently get her husband involved in attending to the hurt of whoever that person might be. Regular? Yes. The female's biology, men understand, the female's biology doesn't allow her to be well every day. So she's going to have off days. Appreciate and work around that. And yes, she's the goddess. Females must understand, wives must understand that they are the Shakti of life. They are the projection of that divine Shakti. They are the energy that drives the home. Fifth and final vow asked by the husband to the wife. It says, today, by God's grace, I hope to share a comfortable home with you. But should adversity be our lot, you are expected to share with me with realism and hope. My adversity should be your adversity. My discomfort should be your discomfort. My poverty should be your poverty. As I have promised to love and cherish you and work towards your welfare, you are expected to do likewise. If ever I can no longer work towards your welfare due to illness, you should assist me. So we have to be guarded about these statements and put them in context. Adversity. Husbands must shoulder many of his challenges and not burden his wife with every minor concern. This habit translates well in a work environment. If we are in a work environment and we can take care of the minor things that pop up, the boss is happy about that. He's less bothered, less called upon to intervene in matters, leaves him more time to shape and mold the business. So it's a good practice that carries across in our life. So when we say adversity, husbands have got to learn to take care of a major part of it. Discomfort, husbands ought to absorb some of the physical discomfort and mental trauma that may come his way. So something distasteful happen, it may affect us, but let us not carry that home. And you know, sometimes we're not well and so forth. Well, many times husbands think that when they are sick, that the world revolves around them. No, you know, take the lead. If we have the attitude to sickness, the wife develops it and the children will feed off that positive attitude. So even discomfort, be tolerant of it. Poverty. Sometimes a husband might have the desire to bestow his wife the most expensive gift, but that was only an intention and a hope, and it can't happen because his pocket cannot reach there. But if his mind is well positioned, then whatever little gift he gets her, whatever gift he gets her and can afford comfortably, with the words that he will use in presenting and by his mannerisms, that will be equivalent to the most valuable gift. So even poverty can be checked by the proper mindset. And at the end of the day, the marriage institution is a team effort. It's seeking each other's welfare. Seek one's own welfare, but also seek equally the other partner's welfare, the spouse's welfare. So these are the vows undertaken by the couples, and it is always prudent, as we have mentioned before, that the pundit ought to bring in the couple before marriage, run the vows, make sure they understand it, and put it in context and perspective, so that when marriage day comes, they are accord with what is being said. At the end of the day, the Munis and Rishis have designed this institution so that we live as Bhagwan in the form of Krishna Bhagwan and Mother Radha, the ideal husband, the ideal wife. We should live in unison. And being the week before Christmas, the Vidyalaya wishes the entire Christian community a Merry and Holy Christmas. So once again, we thank you for sharing with us, and by God's grace, we meet and greet next week. In the interim, have a safe and blessed week. Sitaram.